Josephine is the very last on her family's totem pole. By the time she was born in 1975, her father, Josephine Mayanja Nkangi, had been part of the political movement for a while.
I was there when he was having these little hidden meetings and side meetings and stuff. And I guess I observed and learned and caught on.
She says her father, who is a member of the Conservative Party, has not taken issue with her political allegiance.
He presents issues, I present issues, we argue it out, we have a middle ground, agree to disagree, agree where we can, and life goes on.
Her mother, she explains, does not have a political bone in her body. In fact, Mrs. Nkangi's passions are so different that Josephine wonders what has kept her parents together for as long as they have been. She notes, though, that the whole family is passionate about music.
And we grew up having chapel or, prayer hour every day, compulsory. And you hear us singing all these different voices. My dad is a great tenor, and I'm a soprano, and my mom and my son are altos.
Josephine is a devout Christian. Growing up with a father who was heavily involved in politics had its toll on the family.
He had to hide a lot, but in plain sight. I remember in the 70s, you'd hear, oh, so-and-so who used to come to the house disappeared. They didn't come back. In my mind, I always grew up with this idea that there's something wrong. Uganda isn't really what it's supposed to be.
When she was 5 years old, she was sent to boarding school in Kenya. Her parents told her later that it was for her safety because of the insecurity in Uganda at the time. She returned and joined Kampala Parents School, later going to Gayaza High School and Buddo Secondary School. By then, her mind was made up on what she wanted to do in life.
I wanted to be the Secretary General of the UN, and I was so determined that this is what I was going to do, So I tried to find out what schools have a program that would allow me to get to the UN.
So she went to the George Washington University in the US, where she studied international relations. When her father asked her what she wanted to be and she replied that she wanted to be a diplomat, he said,
"Who will marry you?" And I said, huh? Like, what? This is left field. So I said, somebody will. And I said, I don't think so, So here we are. But I think he was being a parent, and he saw things and knew things that I did not. Because he sort of saw the big picture of if you're a diplomat, it means you don't have roots. You're always moving up and down, and so who wants to marry somebody who's everywhere and anywhere, but not at home? You know what I mean? So in retrospect, he was right. I'm sure he's sad he was right, but there we are.
Josephine has a 3-year-old daughter. Having spent quite a bit of her adult life in the US, she admits that there are cultures she picked up and came home with.
Where you become an entirely private person and you become entirely inward-looking.
She has worked in the advertising industry, the tourism industry, environment and wildlife. In her opinion, everyone should have an interest and play a part in the politics of their country.
We don't want to admit it, and some people think, oh, I'm apolitical, or I'll leave that to a certain segment, or I'll leave it to the men. But that's why we are at where we are now. I think I have a strong suspicion if we had a female leader at some point, we wouldn't even be here. Because females, we think a certain way, and we prioritize things in a certain way. You see what I mean?
She feels that certain conversations should be targeted specifically to women who she believes have the skill set and ability to push Uganda forward.
My mom is like the little linchpin, of the family. And women are that in this country. Whether this linchpin that makes this Uganda work. So if we're taken out of the most critical thing, which is politics, then we don't go anywhere.
Josephine feels that the politics of Uganda is in fact the abuse of a good thing.
We've taken a pure science and vulgarized it and turned it into this animal that's hateful, that's intolerant, that doesn't accept everybody.
She yearns to get to a place where she can attest to doing her best when she was given the opportunity.
I don't want my daughter to have to grow up thinking, Mommy let me down. She wasted all her time away from me and came home late every night, but didn't do the things that were required.
As the Director for Communications, Media and Public Relations of the Go Forward movement, she says that her boss, Amama Mbabazi, who is running for president, is a very principled man.
He doesn't really say things that he doesn't think needs to be said, and I guess that's what they mean by secretive. He doesn't feel the need to talk all the time or to fill the silence. You know, he's very comfortable in his own skin.
Mbabazi's camp set the pace for social media communication, and Josephine was one of those driving it.
My biggest challenge has been getting people to see what I see. It's also been very challenging for me to wake up and realize I've been sleeping all this time.
By her own admission, she has known Amama Mbabazi for quite a while.
What drew me to do the work that I do for him was his honesty. It's a big deal to me.
She would like to see more Ugandans get involved than remain passive and accepting of the status quo.
The power of knowledge is when you know something and there's something wrong with it, you can change it. But if you don't know it, you just stay in the state of inertia, and that inertia can kill you.
If Josephine was offered the opportunity to serve under the current regime, would she take it?
Why not? The reason I'm doing what I'm doing is because certain things are not working the way that they should. So I don't have a problem with him. I have a problem with what's going on.
For a long time, she was a supporter of the NRM. She explains why what she is doing now is important to her.
I am Ugandan, and for the longest time I voted NRM. Actually, for all my voting life, I voted NRM. I believed in what I thought it was. Until I realized there was a worm in the apple, then I stopped biting.
Previously, Josephine Mayanja Nkangi worked as the press secretary for Amama Mbabazi when he was still Prime Minister. Josephine Karungi, NTV.